Go live. Oh, it's working. There we go. Setting it up. Here we go. We'll just apologize for our tardiness. Okay.
All right.
It's working. I think we did it. All right.
All right. Hello to the general public.
Who may or may not be here watching at this time, but we hope you are. And we're the Beth and Kelly show. I don't remember who started calling us that. I think it was Carol.
It was Carol Burton.
Carol Burton, the great Carol Burton, choir director from Garfield High School fame.
Yeah.
And I guess she thought we were, you know what I think we are, Beth? We are 1 + 1 = 3.
Yes, we create kind of a...
More than the two of ourselves when we're
Yeah.
together are even extra ourselves.
Yeah. Yep.
Just, right?
That's right.
Yeah, but what I would like the viewers to know is that our first meeting was in my job interview to be your colleague at Washington Middle School. We had never met before.
Well, I had seen you. So when you were doing like a practicum experience with Bob Knott,
yeah,
I remember walking by the classroom going, oh, great, Bob's got another acolyte or whatever. And, you know, not taking time to go in there and say, hey.
Yeah.
You know, or introduce myself or anything. But
well, that was the culture at that time, which is the entire premise of today's meeting.
Exactly.
Go ahead. You had seen me.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, we're talking about a real special school in Seattle Public Schools, and it's a public middle school in the Central District of Seattle.
Which is a historically Black neighborhood.
Yeah.
By the time we were teaching there, the gentrification had already begun.
Yeah.
But it's in full effect at this time. But when we were teaching there, it was the most diverse school in the entire school district and served all 5, I don't know what that's called, like learning designations. Like we had AP, Honors, Horizon.
Yeah.
What other names did it have?
Spectrum.
And then General Ed. And then all of the levels of special education, all the way to medically fragile. So we were the only middle school that had.
And tons of ELL services too.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking about a school called Washington Middle School in Seattle's Central District. And Kelly and I are ultra lucky because both of us got to really hone our teaching skills in this space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both had a little experience before we got there, like a couple years. I had taught 3 years prior, but it was general music. And Beth, you had somewhere else you
went. It was general music for 1.5 years.
Yeah, like the longest 1.5 years of your life.
Yeah. I mean, it's where I, you know, had my first teaching experience, but also realized that I need to be in an instrumental teaching space. That's kind of what I realized about myself as a teacher, even though the opportunity to teach general music for 1.5 years certainly informed going into teaching middle school.
It's middle school classroom management, our elementary school skills for sure.
Yeah. Like specific to general music too, because you just kind of learn a rhythm when you're teaching general music.
Learning to read the crowd.
RTC.
Abandoned plan.
Yeah. Yeah, RTC is what we call that, the application of RTC.
That's right. It's probably the most important teacher skill.
Right.
It's the ability to be able to feel the shift in the room.
Right.
the
Whether that's a shift to understanding or a shift to engagement or
yeah,
a shift away from those things.
yeah,
And those things happen constantly,
yes. And
especially in,
your plan will immediately have to shift.
mhm,
And then you got to dig into the bag of tricks.
the bag of tricks,
Here's the show.
which at Washington Middle School and in being able to team teach with you, is where I realized that as a teacher, it is actually okay to use that bag of tricks.
Yes.
Sometimes we shoulder this burden of, well, if the kids aren't getting it, it's something bad about my plan and I just have to own that. Well, yeah, but you can also just change it up.
It's not too late to go ahead and do
Right,
that.
right. Like change it up right now. Right this
Yeah.
second.
Yeah. Go.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a nice little introduction to what we're talking about today,
Yeah.
which is really just trying to set the stage for how we know each other, and I think most importantly, what we did together.
Yeah.
Because I think that what we were doing at Washington is a really great model for what um, a post COVID classroom might look like in a lot of ways. And also a classroom and a program that really took to heart representing the community of students at our school. Um, and we had to acknowledge right away. And what year did we start teaching together? Was it like 2010?
No, I think it was like 08
08? It was then.
or 09
Um,
or something.
to acknowledge that we're a couple of white ladies teaching in a school in the historically black neighborhood, and to look at the school demographics that at that time were, I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but it felt like about 50% African American students, and that the like vast majority, like 99% of those kids were what was called general ed, and
Right.
how totally gross that felt. Um,
Right.
in an like educationally speaking, and you would have these pods of kids that would walk around and really had no relationship to each other. You had the APP kids who were
Right.
wealthy and white
And let's point out involved in the music program.
and were the music department,
Yeah.
and how truly disgusting that felt. And I don't remember in my interview if I talked about that out loud or not, but it was my number one agenda item was like,
Right.
I am not going to take this job. I'm not going to teach. I did not want to teach at Washington Middle School. I thought all of those things I just said were disgusting. And that was why I didn't want to accept the job. I thought
Right.
it was going to be an impossible battle to fight. And I had an infant and also a really great love of the man I was going to replace. He was my I went to Washington Middle School,
Yeah.
and he was my teacher, and I loved him, and I didn't want to try and do that. I just
Right.
thought it was insanity. And Scott Brown called me and told me that he thought I should do it. And I told him all those things. I remember saying, I'm not going to be the sacrificial lamb. I'll let some moron take that job. They will fail. I give them 4 months. Then the kids won't have a teacher for the rest of the year. And then I'll take the job because I'll be allowed to do what I think is right for that program and that school. But it's not going to happen until someone really fails, because the expectation was to do what Bob Nat had done.
Right.
What Bob Nat had done was some of the most unbelievable middle school
Unbelievable.
teaching you could ever see.
Unbelievable.
However, he was of the thinking that he wanted to teach the kids who wanted to be there. And what started happening is that families who are savvy knew that their kids' records would look good if they had music on it. And they started sending their kids to Washington to work with this great man. But now you have all of these upwardly mobile white people, families mobilizing for their kids' future and sending them to this school. And it didn't take a really long time, the program that he started with became so white, like, and so APP. We're not even just talking about white kids who were maybe in spectrum or general ed. It like really became APP white kids in that music department. And I just thought that there was no way to change that. And, but I did end up taking the job because in our job interview, I remember Beth and I remember thinking, that is somebody I would like to work with.
I know. And, and then you were like, let's go out for breakfast. And I don't know if the breakfast happened before or after you said yes to the position. But I felt like that breakfast was like, she's finally deciding whether or not she wants to do this. Because I also got the impression that you were like, I don't want to take, like, there were things that you were weighing, like,
yeah,
I have an infant at home.
yeah, it's like emotionally painful to replace this man I love,
right? And all of that,
yeah,
and like you were weighing whether you were up for that challenge. And we went out for breakfast, and it was like, I think you decided, okay, I'm gonna go for this.
Yeah. Well, we had what we had was chemistry, just like friend chemistry, but also I think we both knew that the only way we were gonna be successful, and we each had an agenda at that time, but we hadn't discussed it yet. But I think we both knew the only way we were gonna be able to do what we wanted was to have a team.
Right.
And so we both had really open hearts to each other.
Yeah. And so let me backtrack just a little bit, talking about when I first started teaching at Washington, because I came from Montana, in a larger town in Montana, and therefore it had a comprehensive music education program. So I was given the opportunity from 4th grade on to study strings with a real string teacher in the public schools, which, growing up and then studying music in college at a public university, and, being taught how to teach strings, that kind of stuff, I was, always under this assumption that when you have a music program in a school district, there's going to be a string teacher teaching strings, a band teacher teaching band, and a choir teacher teaching choir. And everybody is going to be covered from elementary, from 4th grade on, middle school to high school. And sometimes teachers, do a couple of those roles. Like, I'm the high school teacher, but I also do 3 elementaries or something like that, or whatever. But everybody is covered. So when I started in Seattle, I was just kind of blown away because, first of all, I was hired on as the orchestra and choir teacher to begin with. And so I was just like, thank goodness I had that general music experience, because choir, man, I would have been in trouble.
At that time was the only music classes at Washington with any sort of diversity.
Right, but I would say that as that beginning teacher, I always say I like to ball up and throw away that first year of teaching, or maybe that first couple years. I was probably a hot mess, especially in the choir classroom.
But for a hot mess, it was still pretty damn good, I bet you.
I don't know, but I did have that opportunity of teaching choir for a good, I don't know, like
Forever, dude. You
10
were
years or
teaching
something.
choir well into my
Yeah.
tenure.
Yeah. So that was, it was hard, but man, it ended up being a gift for sure. But I was just so surprised when I remember um, after I was offered the job,
Mm-hmm.
the orchestra teacher at the time, Taryn Weber,
Hi, Karen.
who was very cool, by the way, folks.
Somebody's watching. I don't know who it is, but so
Taryn was like, "You should come to the spring concert. It's in the gym," and I was just like, "Okay, cool, yeah, I'll be there," you know. And I went expecting to hear a middle school
a squeak and
level.
squawk fest.
Yeah, a squeak and squawk fest, exactly. And I went and um,
Holy.
I was like, whoa. I was like, whoa, this is what I just got myself into. I was like, all right, I can play this game.
Yeah.
Game on. And, but I was just like, it was like crazy to
Mm-hmm.
see. This is not normal. This is not normal. And uh, it's just crazy. I was also really surprised that people were allowed to opt into the school from all over the city.
Mm.
Quite a few people were coming from far reaches of our city to be a
Right.
part of the school. And I was like, wow, that's unusual. A
Yeah.
lot of times people have to go to the school in their neighborhood, and every school is outfitted with the programs that they need.
That is what is supposed to happen around the country.
Yeah,
It's just not what happens in Seattle, or especially at that time. But
right. And I was
great
really
thing to remind
interested.
people of.
Yeah,
Seattle
I was
needs
really interested
open
that
enrollment.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that went on for years and years. I
yeah.
mean, it really went on like literally until now even.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's perfect, Beth, because what I think is especially applicable to folks right now is that you and I were two humans who didn't know each other, who both had a job that was cool and had some great things about it and loved teaching music, but also had some like pretty icky things attached, and we both had an agenda. But the way that we made it happen was that we talked to each other as colleagues, and
Right.
we both knew enough about humans to like open up our heart to help the other person. It was in our interest to do so, you know,
Right.
to be friendly at the beginning. It was just to be good colleagues. We didn't know that we would become best buddies, but um and what would happen would happen.
Yeah.
But, I think that's a great say, like it's a great thing to acknowledge that our beginning years together, that Seattle schools were on open enrollment. So Washington was not ever a magnet school, but when the Supreme Court ruled the mandatory busing be ended, by that time, when mandatory busing was happening, I was a student at Washington. So I was busing across town, and I got to have this amazing experience. But then they got mandatory busing was no longer allowed. So the district moved to open enrollment.
Right.
Families could then choose to like bus themselves, sort of. So it was
Right.
Seattle's attempt to desegregate the schools. And anyone I've talked to about it loved it, because you got to another part of the city,
Mhm.
and your colleagues were not your neighbors. It
Yeah.
was more of a reflection of the actual city, but Seattle itself is very segregated by neighborhood racially. Um, so it's kind of a beautiful time. Anyway, that's when open enrollment happened. And during open enrollment is why what I described, sort of the gentrifying of the music department, happened.
Right.
And so that's what Beth and I inherited. But it went into action my second year at Washington. So my whole first year at Washington, was probably going to be rift,
Right, right.
because the school district was moving from open enrollment to neighborhood schools. And so it was for us so friggin' traumatic that this was going to happen because we were going to lose, and we did lose
We did lose.
60% of our students. 60. We
Yeah.
did not think we were even going to be able to keep full-time jobs. And what we did, and we were just like friendly colleagues at that point.
Yeah.
What we did is we came together with our agendas and we decided to capitalize on what was a historic moment and a really
Yeah.
painful time, traumatic for us and for our students, because there was no grandfathering. They were just being lifted and moved.
Right.
Um, and we decided to take that moment and to change how we did business. And it's because of that that we were able to accomplish our agendas. And I want to bring this up now because most of what we want to talk about in the Beth and Kelly show is how to change your program to reflect your student body and how to reflect that in your classroom. And this is the time to talk about it because when we're coming back, things will be different.
And we're all kind of in that position right now
Yeah,
of needing to make that change.
right.
We're all going to have to make some very drastic changes.
That's right.
Period.
So
Um,
we think that our experience can be helpful at this time. And I want to encourage everyone to start thinking now and to continue to think every day, like for
every
the rest
day.
of your career, what is not great about my music department? And how do I need to change how I do business to change that? And obviously, the things people are talking about now are things like, sorry, I'm super parched, bro.
Drink some fizzy water.
It's the recipe for success. How can we take this time and honor the Black Lives Matter movement
Yep.
and knowing that we're coming back to classrooms that will look different because of COVID?
Yeah.
How can we take this moment and make a positive change? And I think you and I have a lot of experience with that. And more than anything, we know like the recipe to success is figure out what your agenda is,
Right.
acknowledge that you have power to change it. You have to be courageous to do so. You can't dig in your feet. You have to
Right.
accept that it's going, you have to face the fear and you
Well,
have to accept.
I think what happens is that you ultimately need to position yourself along with the students as a learner in this.
Yes. Yes.
You got to like strap into the roller coaster with them. You can't stand down at the bottom of the roller coaster and not go on the ride. You got to go on the ride with them.
Yes. And I think what middle schoolers force you to do, but is so important to the work that we're all, I hope, as music teachers embarking on, is a commitment to honesty.
Yeah.
You've got to be honest with your students about what's going on and why. And you have to be honest with yourself. Like, I might be kind of screwing up right now, and that makes me feel bad, and I want to do better.
Yeah.
But you have to commit to being honest.
One of the other things that was, I think, key in our ability to be successful here was true collaboration. And by that, I mean, it was true collaboration. It wasn't two people
Because
running
neither of us had the answer.
right. And
We
it wasn't,
help.
yeah, we needed to help each other.
Yeah.
It wasn't two people running separate programs that
Don't
come
worry.
together for like staff meetings or whatever.
Yeah.
It was two people who were like, okay, we're going to use this opportunity of major change that happened to us.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to take this opportunity to make change in our department um, to meet our new needs
Yeah.
and address things that hadn't been addressed before. And that became the reality instead of trying to, I don't know, soldier on or something in the old way.
Yeah.
Things had changed so drastically.
My I think it'll be funny if I say what you I think your agenda was and you say what you think my agenda was.
Okay.
I think your agenda was to have orchestra be treated with as much respect and reverence as a program and as a musical offering as the concert bands were at that time. And that you really wanted there to be some sort of alternative to classical music for string students,
Yeah.
and that you really wanted a choir teacher to teach choir.
Those
I
are
would say those were your three main agendas.
yep. Those are the three things.
What
For sure.
do you think mine was?
For you, I think it was to come in um, and having been a student at Washington,
Uh-huh.
to come in and address the issues that you knew were there, um, both with both with band and concert band.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think you truly, truly, truly wanted to do right by Mr. Nat.
Yes, dude.
You wanted to honor the amazingness that he was able to bestow upon.
Not just musical excellence, but also like rigor
Yeah,
and his students wanted to be the best, not because they wanted to
yeah,
win this place, but because they wanted to make him and his legacy happy, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
And you, before it was a buzzword, before it was something that we talk about as as our learning objectives, you came in wanting make um, to make our program culturally responsive in ways that made students of color truly feel welcome
Mm-hmm.
inside the doors of our music center.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I think those were your goals.
Yeah. And to be home for bedtime every night.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, we're got to do this, but I'm not working 80-hour weeks.
Right.
I'm not.
Right.
I'm going home at 4. That's what's happening.
Right.
Well,
Well, I mean,
after she goes to bed, I'll
yeah.
be emailing for 5 hours, which I always did,
Right.
but I would be home for bedtime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
And you lived right in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And, yeah. I mean, but like byproducts of those goals started occurring once we actually started. Well, first of all, we both kind of like got on board with each other's goals,
Yeah.
um, and
I mean, I didn't care. I had never once in my life thought about string players having an alternative to classical music. I had never thought about it, ever.
right,
It's not that I didn't care about it. I simply didn't even know it was something to consider.
right. Well, and
I thought that seems fair and important, and it's important to Beth, and so it's now important to me.
right, and so yeah, like I think maybe your first introduction to that whole deal was even pre you applying for the job is when you were a sub in Seattle Public Schools just prior.
Yeah.
And we were getting ready for a concert with Daryl Langer.
Yeah.
And we were doing his arrangement of Little Darlin'.
Yes.
And I remember I was
Right.
gone.
I was subbing.
Yeah,
Right.
you subbed for me. And you actually wrote in some pretty damn amazing like articulation marks and stuff
What
like
a
that.
twerp that I thought I should go ahead and do that. Mark up your score.
I know, but like, thank goodness because like I needed that. You have this like
Yeah.
knowledge of how to articulate big band, and that's a famous big band chart. And um, thank
And
goodness,
I went home and I think it was like a 3-day sub gig maybe.
yeah,
Because I
it was
know that
probably at
I
ASTA.
yeah, because I know that I went home and got a CD, like because I had a CD with Little
Yeah,
Merlin on it, so I could bring it back the next day and play it for the kids because I really wanted them
right,
to hear the Basie band.
yeah.
And I remember like the philosophical wrestling with the idea of classical string orchestra playing Little Darlin' and the authenticity of that, and is that okay? And I just like it really started my brain
You
thinking
went
about
through a whole bunch of different feelings, like
yeah,
orchestra people shouldn't be playing bassy,
or like
maybe to begin
like
with.
if it's not going to swing, then let's not do it.
Right,
Or
right, yeah,
you know, and then starting to and then realizing because I mean this was we were young. I mean,
yeah,
we were in our early 30s. We were
yeah,
pretty young teachers. I thought I knew a lot more than I really did. And I was overly confident because I had to be, because I took this crazy job.
right,
Like I had to fake the confidence,
right.
and just accept that persona to be successful. But it really, I mean, I went to Roosevelt. I was in the Roosevelt Jazz Band, dude. I am so judgmental about the quality of a big band. Like, so
And
judgmental.
if there's anything someone comes away from the Roosevelt band,
Yeah.
it's how to articulate bassy.
How to articulate and how to swing. And then, like,
Yeah,
wait, what are these kids doing? But it's not really successful. Should we even let it be successful? Like, it
right,
was a thing for me. But
yeah,
I didn't know that was something you were doing before I accepted the job. I'm not sure when I kind of processed and it all came together, but I had forgotten about that.
right,
Totally forgot, dude. That's
yeah.
funny.
Well, I mean that was your first introduction to teaching that stuff to string kids.
Yeah,
And
it's the first time I ever stood in front of an orchestra, I'm pretty sure.
yeah, yeah, and so that started us like once the priorities were out on the table about what
What we're
the
going to
two
do.
of us wanted to do to go forward.
And
Um,
that became our rubric. It was
right.
like, we're going to have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
We've got, a handful of students at this time.
Right. I'm gonna throw in
Yeah.
like kudos to our principal at the time,
Oh,
John
man.
Heckover,
Because he
who
supported our agenda.
yeah, who sat me down in my office because he knew I was falling apart.
Freaking, yeah.
And he sat me down in my office and he said, Beth, we're going to get through this. And I don't care if you're under enrolled right now, we're going to ride through this
You're
storm.
going to have your job.
Yeah, you're going to have your job. That was like
Yeah.
obviously very up there as far as
And
priority
man,
goes.
did he fight for me to keep my job. They created an entire designation called jazz educator
Right.
so that they could
You could,
list the job as with that as a requirement, which it truly was.
right.
It wasn't a designation at that time, and it was created so that I would not be riffed.
Right. And
That was John.
yeah, it was John and then John was um courageous enough as a leader to allow you and I to propose some pretty
Wacky stuff,
revolutionary
dude.
stuff. Pretty revolutionary stuff
We
that
also didn't ask for permission a lot.
no, and I know that like if
We went him crazy, dude.
if the man has gray hair, it's probably
It's our fault. It's for sure.
yeah.
Like,
Uh,
sorry, John.
yeah, we
Man,
totally
were we a pain in his ass.
I know.
But you know what? We were fighting for our kids and for
Yeah.
our program. It wasn't a selfish fight.
And ultimately he ended up as an administrator supporting our initiatives. And if we didn't have that administrative support to be able to create these things,
Right.
it never would have happened. And so,
Well, it was like a symbiotic relationship. Like his agenda was to have Washington Middle School receive praise and not to be on the cover of the Seattle Times for something scandalous happening. And at that time, Washington was it was like it was the school that the district and other districts would study to
yeah,
get a gauge on what was happening because we offered all of the programs.
right,
We were always under this microscope.
yeah,
And so what our school did was closely watched, and he felt that
mm-hmm.
and loved the school. I mean, he painted his house purple and gold, bro. Like he loved
Loves the
the school
school.
so much. He only wanted what was best. And so he trusted us that we knew what was best. He enrolled his sons in our program. Yeah. And he was our advocate, but he pushed back a lot. I mean, it's not like we always got what we wanted, far from it. But he was.
But ultimately, we got these revolutionary things to start happening. And
Yeah.
I'm going to point out happening officially, not just like as an evening club that meets one night a week or not just like on the side.
Yeah. Okay, so let's lay it out for people. We've got 20 minutes left. So
Okay.
I think we can probably get through what the program looked like at its moment, you know, the golden moment.
Yeah.
And I mean, I truly felt at that time like if every music department could look like this and do what we're doing, that the world is gonna be safe forevermore. I really felt that. Like, I felt that the kids exiting our program were just like
They were on fire.
The world, you know, the community.
Yeah.
I was so proud of that program. And maybe some things that we did to get there, which then sets the stage for episode 2.
Right.
We can tease out some of those things and maybe make some proposals for what online learning could look like and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't you describe the program at its pinnacle?
The program at its pinnacle featured a music department that was united, as in there were 3 fully qualified music teachers teaching in their area of expertise.
All certificated.
And all of those teachers were united and in policy. In policy. And
like our grade books were the exact same.
Right.
Syllabus was the
practice.
Same. Mm-hmm.
And the culture in the school and in the music department was we play music, and we as teachers were all everybody's teachers.
Right. Choir students were mine.
Right.
As much as they were Mr. Saunders, Blake Saunders, who was our at the pinnacle, we had percussion ensemble.
Yes.
And choir, and that's what he was teaching.
Yes. And yeah, he was able to blow out the choir program into 2, because when I was teaching it was reserved as 1 section.
Right.
Able to make it into 2 sections.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to add percussion during the
first
day.
Well, first what happened is we had to make your choir, the one choir, big enough that it was starting to demand 2, and you couldn't teach 2 because your orchestras were full enough.
Right.
That they needed to become 5. And so we waited for that moment. And then, I mean, it took a year. We had to build our numbers back.
Right.
And who we built it back with was a part of the strategy.
Right.
But once you had your numbers, then we submitted proposals.
Right.
And then there was sort of an in-between.
Right. The entrance of the choir teacher happened synonymously with the addition of our 5th string ensemble during the school day, which
had to go together.
Right, which was, yes, it was parallel to our top big band.
Yeah.
It was a string group.
Yeah.
and it shared equally
Yeah.
the rhythm section players.
Right. So the first step was we had a .2 choir teacher
Right,
who taught choir during our prep.
right,
And we had the same prep time
right.
where all kinds of mayhem and laughter and fizzy water
Yeah,
occurred, and brainstorming and like just creativity to the 10th.
right,
Our prep was the same, and then we each had a beginning group
right.
strings band. We each had an intermediate level strings band at the same time.
Yes.
Junior level strings band, same time. Senior level orchestra band, same time.
Yeah,
And then I had my jazz band. And so at the same time, Beth would have her alt strings group.
yeah. And we would share rhythm section members, as I said, and collaborate
Right.
across the board with all classes.
And I do want to add that after that, for a year, then my top concert band enrollment hit 120.
Right.
I had some questions about if I might be able to get paid a little bit more for having like so many kids, like 4 classes in one. And I was told, no, that's not in the union contract, but fire code might be a problem. So we got the fire code capacity of that room. We took it to John, who was very interested in following the rules. That guy follows the rules,
Yes.
and pointed out that the fire code thing, we might be about 20 over that. But if we could get rid of that percussion equipment taking up all that space and maybe move all those drummers into one class, that then everyone would be educationally served, and we wouldn't have to keep kids out of the top band, which his son was going to be in, and we're going to be going to Disneyland the next year. So it was we capitalized on that moment.
Yeah.
So then it became percussion, choir,
Right.
or the third teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. So the collaborations piece
Yes.
was part of that pinnacle. And I'm gonna go ahead and say we made a conscious effort to move away from pull out full orchestra, as
Yeah.
in as in instead of me taking the top
10
wind
wins.
players, yeah, the top 10 wind players from the band and having them come to my room on Fridays, we made this conscious decision to do collaborative band orchestra together.
Dude, that was so friggin' crazy that we did that.
It was so crazy and like so cool because everyone
your
got
top orchestra,
yeah,
my top concert band. I remember I had 98 kids in band that year.
yeah.
The orchestra was large. It was probably 50 or so. So we're talking about 150 kids in my hot, steamy cement with no windows or doors to the outside room.
Right.
That's what we were planning to do. It was insane to consider it. Now it seems so obvious, but it accomplished my agenda because I thought it is so gross to have to pick 10 kids out of 98 kids who would love the opportunity. It's really gross that I have to pick kids to go, and I'm trying to pick them, and it's like, God, that there's like no girls in that group. It's all boys. That feels gross.
Well, you know what felt gross to me was the um, it's like the wind kids when they would come to my classroom.
They were dicks.
They were like just they did it begrudgingly, and there are some people who are famous players right now that did that
Yeah.
begrudgingly, and
Mr. Nat made them.
right.
And they did not treat you with respect, and that was your agenda item.
Right, because they
to be respected.
They didn't see me as their teacher, and they didn't have any loyalty to me, and so you and I together modeling respect for each other and learning from each other and team teaching and that went a million miles.
I think
In
you were like, I remember there was a little pushback at first. I mean, because of course you just take a few wins over to the orchestra for full orchestra.
right,
And I'm like, but what about, I have 3 Black kids in this ensemble out of 98. Can I at least try and get them over there? Well, they play saxophone. There's no
right,
parts. Like, it was like we were bumping up against the structure of
yeah,
instrumentation, and it was just like it felt like there was no solution. We were stressed out about what's the solution.
yeah,
And I think you said there's this guy I know who might compose something. Um, I'm gonna reach out. Uh, I'm gonna reach out.
yeah,
And we had already though done some things together. Like I remember the first day of school, my first year, we brought all the kids into your room and we
yeah,
went through the syllabus.
right.
And
That
I remember that
yeah, that became
because
our
there was,
opening day act, which
yes,
we are like famous
it's
for,
the
yo.
same syllabus. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter who you are, it goes to you.
yeah, yeah,
The music syllabus. And I remember this percussion kid, to be unnamed, um, was being such a jerk dude. He did not want to be there, and he did not want either one of us to tell him what to do.
right.
And you were like, office. And you pulled him into your office. He was my student. And I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, this is all new. I don't know what's going to happen. What's she going to do? I've never seen her teach before. It's the first day of school. And you were like, call your mom. And you had to pick up the phone. The whole class was sitting out there. He called his mom right there. And you handled it right then. And I remember being so amazed by the efficiency of that and thinking, I might get to home for bedtime after all if you just handle this stuff right when it happens. That was
Right.
radical to me.
Yeah,
That you wouldn't call him back in at lunch or
right.
after school. You were like, right now.
Yeah, well, I
150
mean,
kids sitting out there watching it happen, dude. It was gold.
well, that's just, it's like, I can't, like, I have anxiety, so I can't let things go.
Mm,
I have to deal with them right now.
yeah.
But that was the start of some really courageous classroom management too between the two of us, where
Because that kid's parents, woo, there were multiple after school meetings with you and I and the
right.
principal.
And you know, just like the simple feeling of knowing that I have this colleague who is in it with me and I can rely upon them, and
It
they
felt
will
safe.
they will be with me in the administering of crazy classroom management moments that
Good, yeah.
we all encounter them where we have to do an intervention. And man, I swear, like, having a partner to help me with our interventions,
Oh,
um,
God, we
it
became famous for those, didn't we?
oh yeah,
The sit down talk with the Beth
yeah,
and Kelly show.
oh my god,
I mean,
I mean,
I hope that someday one of our former students will see this and will write to us in memory of one of the talks that they received.
yeah,
Because I don't remember any of them. Like the great moments, sort of, I black them out almost when I'm really on a roll.
right,
You know?
right. But there were so many, and
Peel off,
you know,
peel off.
peel off. Yeah, but what happens when you can collaborate with someone in this type of intervention is that you might be, as a person, you might be amped up and like uh need someone to help you with this, because when you as the teacher are really angry,
Yes, emotional.
emotional, I mean, I was just so thankful I had you to help rein things
Balance
in.
out. Yeah.
Yeah,
If I start going a little too hardcore, you would
right,
soften things, and
right.
we would vibe off of each other and like really try and help. Like we really just wanted to do right by the kids.
Yeah, and that actually ended
Sometimes
up,
the smackdown is what's right for
yeah,
kids.
it ended up cultivating like a culture of trust
Mm-hmm.
between you and I, and between the kids and you and I. to
Yeah,
the point
remember
where,
times like baby got back coming
oh my
over to
God,
this?
yes,
He came, it was my first year. He
yeah,
was an eighth grader. Like we didn't know each other. You were his teacher, but he
mm-hmm.
came to me. Some of it selfishly because he didn't want to get in trouble, but
Right,
he knew I was going to tell you.
right,
He really didn't want to upset you because it was a big night for you. Your kids
right,
were playing at Meany Theater,
yeah,
and he didn't want to like ruin that for you.
right. And he
So
knew he had messed up. He
yeah, he
knew.
came to me for help. Do you have some pants and a shirt? I left mine at the bus stop. And I was like, yes, the bins are right there. Find something that works. That's all I've got. And he went into the back room and he found an outfit
Yeah,
and he solved his problem.
solve the problem. And
And
on
I
stage.
obviously told you about it later, but
Uh,
at the most perfect moment,
yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Tell it, please. It's so good. We're
Uh,
off topic, but I actually think this is so on topic
yeah,
because what happened when we accepted each other's like agenda and had like open hearts to being collaborators. Like we
yeah,
were friends at first. We were just neighbors who were just trying to learn each other also.
right.
But what happened by doing that was that we became like best friends,
Yeah,
dude. And we have these hilarious moments, and those are the moments where because we had them together, all we would have to do is see, I just said baby got back, and she knows
yeah.
what I'm talking about, even though it was like 15 years ago, because we laugh about it all the time because it's
It's
so funny.
it's so funny. I
And
mean,
when you're laughing and love each other's company, your students feel it.
they feel it and they remember it and they tell the stories again and again.
Yes, please say
Um,
baby got back.
yeah. So with this particular incident,
Yes.
we already know that the student who shall remain unnamed uh,
Yes.
left his concert attire in a plastic shopping bag at the bus stop in West Seattle.
On the day of his mini hall
Day
debut.
of big mini hall debut of a middle school quartet playing the Dvorak American Quartet
Yes.
um, as special guests of the Marian Anderson String Quartet,
Yes.
which was a humongous, humongous honor. Oh my God.
Right.
So, and he knew that. He knew
He
that.
knew.
And
And you were already whipped into a frenzy, which he knew also, because it's a
right,
huge.
I was in a frenzy and he was probably in a frenzy too, which is probably why he left the bag at the bus stop. But he remembered that this had occurred
Yes.
somewhere around first lunch,
Yeah.
and
And I've got this other teacher.
right,
I don't really know her.
yeah, and went to find somebody who could provide some help.
Yeah.
They went to you.
Yeah.
You were like, go check the bins. And
Yeah.
of course, the bins have some extra stuff. But we also know that students who are near the middle to the end of their eighth grade year are also like in the middle of the largest growth spurt that they go through. And basically, this student had entered into high school height.
Size.
Yeah,
Yeah.
high school height. And what we had in the bins was middle school stuff.
That's right.
And so he found some new pants and a shirt, with the kicker being that the pants were just slightly too short and maybe a little bit too small. And but they worked, man. They worked. And so I was kept in the dark on this until.
Well, I wasn't going to tell you until like
Yeah.
weekend passed, and then just mention it for the grade book. Like, dude did great, but we might want to take off a few points for the irresponsible factor. But
then they go out on stage
in the audience.
Yeah. And as many students over the years will attest,
yes.
You and I are guilty as charged, when it comes to having a laughing attack during a
At the
performance.
most inappropriate times, too.
Yeah, guilty as charged. Guilty
We
as charged.
have had entire class meetings where we did the open string cycle to tune, and then the rest of the time was laughing hysterically. Reels.
I know, and we're in the middle of mini theater. All of the patrons of the arts are there.
Yes, it's very fancy.
And yeah, yep.
Walked
Uh,
out
yeah,
with his viola,
yeah.
which hides no, not a cello, viola. And those things were tight and toasty, y'all. They were, you know, and I turned to Beth. And I think this is what happened. I turned to Beth and I go, baby got back. Now, Beth didn't know why his pants were so revealing.
Well, kids go through these growth spurts. I was like, geez.
You should have gotten some new pants, bro. Like, come on. Oh, man. It's
It
funny.
was so epic.
But all of these things are not really funny to anyone else except for you and me and the kids that were there.
Yeah.
Like, no one just laughed at that. I think it was just you and me. Maybe middle school teachers would find that hilarious. But
Well,
we just...
so many of those moments fuel my ability to teach now. I mean, like, they were so funny and so ultimately special to me
And
that
a snapshot of time. That was a very
yeah,
particular time for us. It's like our photo album are these stories.
yeah,
And they're with the kids. There are hundreds of kids that know that story.
yeah,
Because our program at the height, when we had the 5 and 5 parallel, I was running 350 kids in and out of my room, and I think yours was like 250 or something.
yeah. It was huge.
Huge. Plus choir and percussion.
And one of the things that I noticed, which is actually what is taught now about it's a component of culturally responsive teaching,
Yeah.
is that we based a ton of what we did on storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And the telling of this lore of kids from the past who were the people who were
Yeah.
the story makers or whatever. That was something that fueled our program.
Yeah, it became like a part of the Washington Middle School canon.
Yeah.
Kids who were not even in the program at that time would ask us to tell
Yeah.
the baby got back story, and laughing with people like, is there a better way to create community and togetherness?
Right.
I don't know.
I've heard so many like parents even tell me that their child comes home, super excited after a day at school or an event that we had, and they're like, I got to tell you this story, and then they try to like reiterate.
Right.
It's either something that happened lifetime or
Yeah.
a story that we told.
Yeah.
But so many.
Everyone wants to be a part of something. Everyone wants to be a part of a group that makes them feel like they're a part, like they belong. And that's what we cultivated. And we always kept our eye on, is what we're doing creating that community?
Yeah, and
it's our shared agenda.
Right, and I think it ultimately did, and it became something that many students relied upon to keep themselves regulated, and it was a home feeling. Being in the central district at that time, we'd go up to Broadcast Coffee, and we'd sit there and we'd watch a myriad of kids walking by with their instruments in hand.
And their purple sweatshirt.
Or purple sweatshirt.
Yep, which we'll talk about next week. Some of these strategies that we did.
Yeah.
Because I would say at the time, at the height of the program, we were accomplishing our goals.
Yeah, we were.
I really think we were. And then we entered into some, once we sort of addressed our own agenda items, which we were successful on all fronts with that, like those structural changes, then we created our 1+1=3 goals.
Right.
And those, I think we'll talk about next week,
Yeah.
and like how we got there. And I think it would be fun after episode 2 if people emailed us or whatever with their questions or concerns also. Because you and I could talk to each other forever
Oh, yeah.
about what we think. Are you kidding me?
I'm just getting started.
I mean, like, how is it time already?
I know. How is it over?
We just had the first bite.
I know.
Moose boosh. All right. Well, I guess we should go.
Well, thanks everybody who.
I don't even know if anyone watched. Maybe my mom.
Yeah.
Hi, Barb.
Maybe my sister. She
Yeah.
texted me about it today.
Oh. Okay, well, maybe someone watched. I think it's going to save on Facebook. So, once we start circulating the good word, people can come back and watch episode 1 with a late start due to tech difficulties because we're a couple old ladies.
Right.
And with basically our derailing ourselves, which we're really good at. We did have a plan for what we would talk about. We did talk about most of it.
I think we did that.
But I thought we would be able to talk about twice as much as we did.
That's always the case.
I know, because we get going and we like to go with each other, We like to kind of, I like to just go where Beth wants to go for a minute and then she'll go with me. And I guess that's a dynamic we worked out team teaching together.
Yeah.
Because we taught, at the end, we taught together minimum 5 hours a week every Friday.
Yeah.
Every class we would combine in the end at minimum. If we had a concert coming up, even more so.
Yeah.
Or if we were like working on a project, and all of that stuff that we did together, I think is extremely useful to planning like a post-COVID classroom.
For sure, because it was all all like not written about in any type of textbook on how you're supposed to be.
Made it up. Totally made it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it really got at our learning targets. And so I think that's what we'll talk about next week.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Dope. All right, everybody. Adios.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah. Adios from Seattle.